Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, festive wishes, happy holidays. Hope everyone's well. I've been had a quite intense hearing. I've been allowed back on, but I'm not allowed to give any opinions or laugh or smile or do anything remotely
You,
fun. So
you've already messed up because you said Happy New Year. It's still 2021.
yeah, but by the time people get round to it and you two start finishing talking about what's happened over the last 4 days, it's definitely going to be 2022. So.
Well, you'll be 23 with us too.
Yeah.
So podcast, I think we've broken it down because there's so much to get through, and we will try and keep it as short as we can. I'm going to go through sort of what I think was interesting from the novice hurdle races. Paul's going to go through Novice Chasers, and Jono's going to wrap up pretty much everything else. I think Paul a little bit on the bumpers as well. So we'll crack straight on, shall we, Paul? If you want to go through arguably the most exciting of the lot, Novice Chasers.
Yeah, we can. So we'll kick off with Kempton, I think, and Brave Man's Game and the Hoist Senior, because I think that is it's certainly one of the races that prompted the most discussion, I think. Brave Man's Game, I thought his jumping was absolutely superb. It was top notch. He just looked like a seasoned professional, really. He didn't look like a novice at all. And he jumped at Hoist Senior silly, really. I thought it was strange tactics on Hoysador to lead, but not to go too quick, not to make use of his stamina. Whereas Brave Man's Game, there's been this little question mark about whether he'll truly stay 3 miles or championship pace type 3 miles. But I guess they just took the decision that they wanted the spin round Kempton with the Hoysador, get some more experience into him. They didn't want him to have a hard race, which is fair enough, I suppose. I think that jumping display might cause them to try and find another race in between now and the festival. Whether that would have been the plan or not, I don't know. I wasn't too downhearted with him, actually. Those fences at Kempton are actually quite stiff. The fences at Cheltenham are much easier these days. So some of those annoying mistakes that he was making, he'd get away with at Cheltenham. He wouldn't be stopped, should we say. So I think he'll improve for going to the festival for easier fences and the stiffer track around Cheltenham as well. So I think that'll bring those two quite close together. But there's no doubt in the Brave Man's Game was very good on the day. He really marks himself out as a serious contender for the Brown Advisory Novice Chase. So let's see. But I can also make a case for a Hoist Sonora reversing in March too. So let's see. But I thought it was a nice race. I thought it told us plenty about both. But actually, as I say, I think they're both contenders. So I think.
Were you not put off by Nichols after the race saying that he wouldn't want to go there, and then now he's supposed to be on his, and it sounds like they are going there, but would that not put you off?
No, not really. He says that after every race about every horse, doesn't he? They're all going to Aintree until they decide that they're going to Cheltenham. So they decided quite quickly the Brave Man's Game, and so they should. He's definitely worth his place in the Brown Advisory Novice Chase, and he goes there with a really good chance. Then we had same day we had Fernie Hollow versus Riviera de Tel, and again plenty of discussion beforehand about whether Fernie was going to be able to give all that weight away, mare's allowance, and she's got the 4-year-old allowance. So it was a tough old task on paper for Fernie, and I think a lot of people thought Riviera de Tel was value on the day, but I thought Fernie's jumping was really impressive. He wasn't a bit scruffy and fiddly like he was the previous time. I thought he jumped well. And I think that was what people needed to see. I wasn't actually too fussed whether he won or not. It was really close. The fact that he won was a massive bonus. Be interesting to see what they do with the Riviera de Tel, because obviously she loses the 4-year-old allowance. So she's going to be notionally not as near to Fernie next time. We've got some other races to cover in a second, but they'll probably be thinking about a decision between the Arkle and the Mare's Chase now, whereas I think they probably would have been I think they'd have been leaning definitely towards the Arkle prior to the race. So we'll see. But the Mesh Chase itself looks as though it could be quite competitive this season. So I think they've got some decisions to make with her. The only thing that I'd noticed, it's the second time I've noted that she jumped right. So there is that thing about whether Cheltenham's going to be her race course at all, whether she's going to be suited. She might be one for Fairyhouse and Punchestown instead. So Easter and then May at Punchestown. I think she stayed 2.5. So as I say, I think the Mesh Chase is an option too. But I think she's a hard one to back after the race. And I think you've got to think about what you want to do with your money if you already got money down on the Arkle. I've left it for the time being, and I'll make a decision later. One of their rivals ran the following day at Kempton, Edwardstone, who I thought was really good again for a second time. There's a few people I heard waxing lyrical about the performance. I didn't think it was better than the previous time. I thought it was every bit as good. And I think he's really marked himself out as the sort of clear second best in the Arkle. So, anybody on the early prices will be very happy with his run. I certainly was. I think he'll run a big race at Cheltenham, actually.
Do you know, I backed him straight after the race at 6-1. I thought...
I thought 6-1 I think was fair enough. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know Isterback put him up, didn't he, at 33, and I was faffing about at the time. I didn't bother. I thought third time I could be better, but just had to bite the bullet. I thought he was just really solid at 6-1, which is a bit short, really. If I'd been thinking clearly, I may not have done it, but
I actually think 6-1's okay.
Given the division,
it's their second favourite, 6-1. He's still an each way price. I think that's all right.
As long as he gets there, I'll be lucky.
Yeah, of course.
I think one thing with Riviera to tell for me is just obviously she's a 4-year-old. I think she's had four races already, and obviously kind of culminating in the Fernie Hollow match. And I think that's a pretty hard schedule for a 4-year-old mare. It wouldn't surprise me if they kind of take a break now. If I was a backer of her, I would probably want that. I think if she had another run, say she took in the Arkle trial at the Dublin Racing Festival, she'd be looking at 6 runs by the time Cheltenham comes. And for me, I'd be a bit concerned on that front.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Be in the Grand Annual then, wouldn't she?
I think Paul mentioned. I wouldn't surprise me if she waits for Fairyhouse, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it would be a very Gordon Elliott thing to do to give her a break now, and either go to the festival fresh, or I think she may actually skip the festival. I think that's the way. If she was mine, that's the way I'd lean. I think I'd be looking elsewhere. She's jumped right twice now. She's a good jumper. She jumps fences nicely, but they're the things that get found out in a championship race at the festival. And I think they're going to find it hard to place her at the festival. Because I say that Mesh Chase, with experienced chasers, looks tough. It's really starting to shape up, and got a little bit on that in a second. But the other one that of note, which took me a bit by surprise, really, because I'm not particularly keen on 4-year-old chasers generally. So we've got 2 of them that come along like buses, haven't they, with Riviera itself? Because we had Auton Couleur the same day. And I backed him pre-race because I kind of had to for my book, and I did it reluctantly, with the immediate thought that I'm probably going to be cashing back out afterwards. It'll be an okay kind of debut, but I wouldn't be overly enthused. But I thought he looked really good. He really pleasantly surprised me. I think he's decent. I think you can probably say go to the Arkle. It's too early really for him for a step up in trip, I think. So I think they'll be looking at him going along with Fernie or not at all. I think he's that kind of horse. And if he does go to the Arkle, I think the cover bet there is you've got to back Blue Lord then for the Turners, because I think he pushed Blue Lord up in trip. If that was the decision. Blue Lord settles now, and all the issues of why he ran in the Supreme last season, because they couldn't get him to settle properly. He's shown no sign of that this season, to my eye. So I think they'd be happy to push him up to 2.5. But all of these are going to be fairly late decisions. You know, it'd be typical Willie Mullins will be still making the decision, you know, the day before the night before he has to enter them. So, but I was pleasantly surprised with Autumn Colour. I thought that was a really good performance for a 4-year-old, and he's now one I'm watching carefully. He's going to need another race for experience, so we get another look at him somewhere, I think. But I think for anybody that hasn't backed him, you know, you've got to be at least be watching him now, and you've probably got to make a decision before his second run. But you know, safe in the knowledge that you've got Fernie, I guess. I think there'll be very few of us that haven't got Fernie Hollow backed. And you know, is he going to be a horse that? Well, he's not going to get weight. He's going to be off levels with Fernie. So you know, is he going to be good enough? Probably not. But you know, it's going to be a smart horse. He's maybe just one for the future. Concertista, I was a bit concerned about her going 2 miles 6. She stayed okay. I thought the performance was okay, and everything about it was okay. That's the word for that. I think she's way too short for the mare's chase. Her price is horrible, given it's shaping up like a pretty hot race. We've just said possibly Riviera de Tel goes there now. Ellie May hopefully is going to bounce back in a couple of days' time. Is it tomorrow? Tomorrow or a couple of days? Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I'll check in a second. We've got Gin and Lime in there. We've got Silver Forever. And the news is that Put the Kettle On has got a 2.5 mile entry against the girls this week, which is the first time that the connections have genuinely, with an entry, shown that she may well be going elsewhere. So there's one of the thoughts I had was that might actually push Concertista back to the mare's hurdle, given that's shaping like a hot race, because the mare's hurdle isn't. You know, that race is starting to look a bit weak now by comparison. I just wonder if they might start thinking that's there for the taking and it's going to be a tough old race and we've already got Ellie May. So
wouldn't have thought so. Not now they've gone chasing and they've got a jockey.
Yeah, I think this would be the obvious one, but it will cross the mind.
It's a non-runner no bet. It's the kind of thing. As soon as non-runner no bet comes out, and she's 16 to 1 or something, then I'll just take it immediately and get my money back in March.
Yeah, exactly that. That's the play. Unless she's still sat on
never be 16
money bets, then that's the play.
They get some of them wrong.
Yeah, not 16s. They are that much on this one.
Well, no.
5 to 1 maybe, 6 to 1. But anyway, same day we had Galopin Deschamps.
Who?
That was just wow. I don't know whether you've watched the race yet, Kev, but
as Kev goes,
yeah, it was phenomenal, wasn't it? Sorry,
it was just superb. I was at Newbury yesterday, and the last time I got a feeling like I got from Galopin Deschamps was I was at the same Newbury meeting 17 years ago when Kato Starr made his debut over here in the Novice Chase. That was the last time I felt that way about a horse on debut. It was just sensational. The horse is going to be an absolute superstar. He's got everything. Jumps like a stag. He gallops. He travels. He's got gears. Kato's my all-time favourite, but I think potentially I'm just about to have a new favourite because the potential there. You sent me a message, Kev. We sent both of us a message. You know, was he as good as Monkfish last year? Whoa, and some. You know, he was. Honestly, the feeling that I got from that was just made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. That horse is going to be absolutely superb, and you know. Horses like him make festivals for me because they're future superstars. You know, whether he'll have the same kind of versatility as a Kato Starr, I don't know, but he's got pace and he looks as though he stays because he just kept galloping through that line. And I think isn't Paul Townend quote to say he couldn't even pull him up by the second fence after the line. You know, he'll stay as well. So the last race actually was probably the one that had everybody the most nervous because there were an awful lot of Run Wild Fred backers amongst us for the National Hunt Chase with some very nice prices and probably a lot of very good looking multiples, should we say. And the concern was that if he won that race yesterday, then he was going to the Brown Advisory Novice Chase rather than the National Hunt Chase. Well, he didn't win the race, and he was beaten by his stablemate Fury Road, which was the perfect result for everybody. I think there would have been. I can't imagine there were many people on Fat Jockey that were upset about Run Wild Fred finishing second yesterday. What it does do, though, I mean, there's a couple of knock-on effects to that. Fury Road, actually, I thought was quite smart. He looked very good. He surprised me just how good. So you kind of got to get, if you take the book approach, you've got to get him in the book for the Brown Advisory Novice Chase. He's not beating Gallop and Deschamps. That isn't happening. He won't get within 10 lengths of him. But you've got to have him in your book. Vanillier, I thought, that run was National Hunt Chase all over, and I think Cromwell's just about said as much since the race.
Yeah.
The disappointment really was on the ropes. I think for him now, I think the percentage chance of him going to the National Hunt Chase now is relatively low. I think they'll be doing what they can to get maybe another race and to try and get his mark down, and they'll campaign for the National. That's what I think they'll do with him. Fury Road winning Run Wild Fred coming second, I think also has a bit of a knock-on effect to the markets. It hasn't had a knock on the market yet because I don't think people have really latched on to the fact that Beacon Edge probably goes to the Turners now because that's the full set for Jigginstown, isn't it? You've got a Run Wild Fred now for the National Hunt Chase. You've got Fury Road for the Brown Advisory Novice Chase. And Beacon Edge, who's looked really good over 2.5 miles, but was talked about as a three mile horse for the Brown Advisory, just goes to the Turners, doesn't he? Nice price as well, 20-1, 16-1 with cash out. And I'd have him second favourite in that race behind Bob Ollinger. When you actually look at the field that's left in that race, My Drogo sadly has picked up an injury. But that race is starting to look a little bit thin behind Bob Ollinger now. I would have Beacon Edge as second favourite at quotes like 16-1 and 20-1, when if he turns up in that race, he's going to be 4-1, 5-1, somewhere in that bracket. It's a bet, isn't it? I think.
Just on that front as well. Just on that front as well, it's worth looking back at the stayers last year because he travelled really well through that race, and I think it was probably about 2 out. Looked like he could win it, and then just didn't stay up the hill. So that middle distance could be what he needs around the festival.
I think that's absolutely spot on, Jono. You're right. He didn't quite see that. He looked to be coming to put a challenge down. Looked as though he was going to be there at the business end, but he faded into fourth from memory. So fences sometimes they tend to stay a bit better over fences, but you just look now. It's just the obvious race for him, isn't it? It just feels like an obvious thing to do. And I'd be saying to both of you guys and to anybody that watches the podcast, back in for the Turners. I've taken the 16s so I can cash out. But I wouldn't actually advise somebody against the 20s if I'm really honest. I think there's a very high percentage chance he goes there now. So anyway, that's my summary, guys.
Excellent. What was your favourite? So Gallop and Deschamps, your favourite by miles, then?
Oh yeah, easily, yeah.
I think that because I was out when I asked you to how good he was compared to Monkfish, and I did watch it back, and I felt the same. Like I remember watching Monkfish and thinking that was the best debut I'd seen that wasn't a 2-miler for years, with only sort of just the way he jumped and stuff, and it was just the same for me. Like, I wouldn't say it was better, but that might be because I watched Monkfish live and had loads on him. And then I'd already sort of heard the hype before, so you're almost then on I almost then think, well, it can't be as good as everyone says, and then it was, so that's probably why I don't think it was better. But even being anywhere near that Monkfish debut is amazing, and like I say, if it's the best you've seen for 17 years, then that says quite a lot.
I just loved it, absolutely loved it. He's got everything. As much as we've seen some really good novice chasers over that period of time, he's got everything. That was on debut. That wasn't his second, third, fourth chase. That was on debut. You could put him in any
well,
race. That's the Fernie he gave me. It was the Kato Starr thing. You could put him in any race. You could drop him down to 2.5. You could even put him in the Arkle.
Yeah,
You know,
the prices are going
I really hope Willie doesn't do that, by the way. and he won't. But that horse has got everything.
Yeah. Are you backed him already for 2023 Gold Cup then?
Of course. In fact, while you're talking, I'm going to check what price I haven't actually.
He was 33s pre-race. I think he's something like he's only just double figures. I think he's 10-1 maybe.
I've got him twice, once straight through for the Gold Cup at 33s, and I've got him Brown Advisory and Gold Cup at 50s.
Or was that beforehand?
Yeah, and quite a way beforehand, to be fair.
Yeah, that's scary to have to back a horse before it's made a chase debut for the Gold Cup to get those prices. Tough to do. What is he now, Dan?
I think he's 10-1. He was 10-1 a couple of days ago. But
10-1.
Yeah.
Tough, innit? You've got to be early now.
Well, he's best price 7-4 for the Brown Advisory, isn't he? So
is that what he is now? Wow.
Yeah, that's best price.
Actually,
best price.
See, Monkfish was bigger than that.
Yeah, it was.
He had nothing to beat. Well, he had the latest exhibition to beat, actually. Not nothing.
365, a standout best price at 7-4. He's a general 6-4, shades of 11-8, 5-4 in a couple of places. He's just. People have taken the same view. You don't see debuts like that very often. All the years that you watch racing, it happens very rarely.
All in then, 10-1 next year. All in. Cool. Right. So, should we do novice? I'll go next. Novice hurdlers. So, going back to Boxing Day, the first horse to run that everyone was excited about was State Man. Fell, fracture. So anyone that's still on, I assume you can't cash out anymore. But he looked as if he was going to win that race. I've got no interest in Watchhouse Cross that did win it. The next race, though, was one that did put down a marker, which was Sir Gerhard. Gerhard? How do you two say that?
I say Sir Gerard.
Sir Gerard. Sir Gerhard, surely. Gerhard Berger. He won nice and straightforward, like out from the front, which we've seen Willie horses doing Supremes before to varying success levels. You'd assume that would be the plan here. I've convinced myself now that he's going to the Supreme and he is the Supreme horse after everything that's happened. Or he's definitely booked himself that race now at the Dublin Race Festival on the Sunday that was called the Palmer Novice, and I couldn't find it today. It was getting on my nerves. It's now called the Tatters Hall.
It's got a new name, has it? It was the Sheriff Palmer, and it was the Deloitte before that, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's what Willie said that he'll do next time. He said that's where they'll aim now. The last time Willie won that race that Sir Gerhard won was with Mount Leinster, and he was the shortest price Mullins horse in that 2 mile race. Asterion Phalange ended up winning that, and Easy Work went off favourite. So I think all Sir Gerhard's really done is book himself into that race, and we won't really know if he's good enough until that's happened. But I'm quite happy with him now. I've backed him, and I think he's only 5-1 now, and I think that's perfectly fair now, because I mean he may not be much bigger than that on the day, but there's a chance that he goes off favourite for that race, the Dublin Race Festival. And I think before that, when we know the declarations, people would need to be making a decision then about that. So yeah, I was impressed with him. I liked the way he did it. Did it easily. Didn't really beat anything that'd be anywhere near a Supreme, but neither has any horse so far that's run until we get a bit later on.
The nice thing about that was, given there was the talk about him being the Ballymore horse this season, and actually, the fact that he was turned over by Kilcroot at Punchestown, there was the thought that Kilcroot was the sharper of the two when it had previously been thought the other way around. They didn't go overly quick in that race, and he showed some pace, I thought. And that was the biggest bonus for me, seeing Sir Gerard showing some toe, because you've got to have stamina you've got to travel, you've got to have stamina, and you've got to have pace to win the Supreme. and that tells me he's got all three.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. He'll get tested up in grade next time, but he's certainly the one that I've got most excited about so far. So, that's quite a nice start. And then I think the next race a few minutes after was, this is just to mention, O'Toole, who's the one that split Kilcrut and Sir Gerhard in the Punchestown bumper. Straight after the race, Simon Crawford was talking about him as a chaser, future Gold Cup horse. They're definitely going to take it easy with him this season. He specifically said he'd need to go up in trip if he went up in grade, so just in case anyone did like him, don't back him, because he even name dropped the James Nicholson chase at Down Royal as a future target as a chaser, and just basically said that he won't be doing anything this season with him. So because I was quite impressed with it and went to back, and that's why I looked, and he just isn't going to be running. Like, he didn't specifically say he won't run at Cheltenham, but if you go back and read what he said on IrishRacing.com, I'd say there's no chance of him going over.
If he does, it goes to Bartlett, I would say. He looks like if you
I don't think
staying chaser, he built like 1-2. If he just won't be the Bartlett, it won't be the two shorter races.
And he specifically said they won't get to the bottom of him this season, so I'd say the chance of him in the Bartlett is just ridiculously small as well. So. Then over to Kempton, same day. Broomfield Berg won at Kempton, which raced that Third Time Lucky's won, Mr. Fisher's won, If the Cap Fits and Elgin over the last 5 years. They've all won, and we're all fancy for the Supreme at some point. It was a bit of a non-contest because the second favourite pulled out, and he's just beaten horses that would have no business in anywhere near a Supreme. But he's the same connections as John Bon, and I think that just means the 40-1 slightly bigger than you would probably get if John Bon didn't exist, which obviously he does. And I'm sure that means, rightly so, the stablemate would probably wallop him, but I don't think you'd get many horses that have won that race that'd be 40-1. So if you were making a book in the race, I'd consider that. I mean, I did think about it, and I think he was 66-1 beforehand, and he's 40-1 now. And I haven't backed him, but he's just of minor interest, as it's with Paddy Power, and I suppose you can cash out with them. But normally, when they bring non-runner but out, they suspend them anyway, so really you'd just be taking a punt at 40. So he won quite nicely, and I just think even if John Bon was owned by a different owner, I don't think he'd still be 40-1, but 40-1 is probably about right, rather than he'd just be too short otherwise. Like horses like Elgin, and I mean, if the Catfits didn't get there, but Third Time Lucky, Mr. Fisher, all sort of like by the time we get to the preview stage, they're the kind of horses that people like to talk up as each way shouts. I mean, this year looks quite strong. We've got some nice candidates at the moment, but just from Nicky Henderson's place record and good record in the Supreme alone, like 40-1 isn't the worst bet that I've ever seen. He's just not one that
Do you think he could be a handicap horse? I mean, he's had 3 runs already.
He could, yeah, definitely could.
They've been getting plenty of experience into him. I was at Warwick when he was on his 3rd run at Warwick, and that was back in the spring. That was maybe May this year. He's been out. Is that his 2nd or 3rd run this season? So he's had at least 5 or 6 runs over hurdles now. It's 134. His official rating is at 134. So he's got experience. Novices win handicaps at the festival. That 134 gets him into pretty much whichever race they want to send him to. They can stick at 2 for the county. They can go for the Coral Cup. They can even go for the Martin Pipe with that kind of rating. They can afford to go and win another race or 2, possibly.
I just think he's worth it.
The other thing is he's settled, because noticeably the day he was at Warwick, there was another JP horse in that race. Actually, I can't remember whose it was. And I think they had that in there to try and give him a lead. But he was quite a headstrong horse. He was, they have to let him go. But the one thing that I would say about that run a couple of days ago was that he looked quite settled. That seems to they've got that out of him, and the experience has done that. I think he's a handicap shout.
Yeah, could well be. I mean, like I say, I think they wouldn't not run him just because of John Bon. I don't think either. So I'd wait and see. Like I say, I wasn't particularly interested in him. I thought he's just a bigger price than he would be. But it doesn't mean I particularly like him. But
yeah,
the next race I had a look at was probably the most important one for this division, or the 2 mile division anyway, which was the future champions Novice Chase. So we had Mighty Potter, 3 Start Life, Grangy, Largy debut, a couple of others. It was the fastest overall handicap on the card that day. It was faster than Akari Allen had gone in the juvenile race, and faster than the handicap, and he was having more weight. So hopefully it's a decent race. Now, like a few people on the forum are on Mighty Potter. I know that someone that's been to the yard has said that the staff there are quite keen on him. I was a little bit concerned after the race when Gordon Elliott said he's not even a horse, which I was like, hey, well, I hope he is, Gordy. But he was just saying he's all going to be about a chaser for next year and stuff. So that I don't like that particularly when we're talking about proper Grade 1 festival hurdles. That put me off ever so slightly. But really pleased that he won. Good attitude, like he stayed on nicely. Looks like he would get a little bit further, but I think as a supreme, I think he would be Gordon's supreme runner at the moment. But I absolutely loved 3 Stripe Life in it. When I watched it back, he was travelling just behind Mighty Potter all the way through, and then before the second last, far out, well, Grangy's run away from him. Far out's gone, just come to him and just going past him, and then he sort of, I'm not sure what happened to that hurdle, because Gordon said that Mighty Potter got swiped as well, so I don't know if something's, I couldn't really make it out, but he's made a mess at that hurdle, and he's ridden away from it, and he's about 3 lengths then last, and then by the time they're round the corner, he's caught, he's right up behind Mighty Potter again, and then has to, like, it's some great riding from Jack Kennedy on Mighty Potter, where he just doesn't let him out, he keeps going straight, and he sort of checks to go up the inside, and then realises there's no room there, so comes all the way back around, and then over the last, and he's just not really any further behind. And I just think if he'd have had a clear run, he'd have been a lot closer. And it was just really interesting. I don't know whether they will go for a handicap with him. I don't know whether they'll put him in the Supreme, but I wouldn't be absolutely certain that Mighty Potter is the better of those 2 at the trip. I definitely would give him another chance. I'd definitely give him a chance to reverse in the form. Now, the bookies haven't really taken much of a chance. He's only 20, and I think Mighty Potter's only 14, so there's not a lot between them. But I absolutely loved it as a run, just because he was so far behind and got himself just back in it without, I mean, he was asked to go, but he just picked up nicely. I was just really, really taken. So if he's sort of anywhere near 20-1 still when non-runner no bet comes out, then I would definitely back him for that. I do like him at 25s for the Ballymore as well, but it's not cash out, so I haven't really done anything with that yet. But I just really, really like the run. Like, I'd go back and watch it again, just watch him all the way through, and just, I think you could mark him up for it. You can also mark Mighty Potter up from the race, I think. He's done really well. And RG debut wouldn't have on my mind at all. Far too much jumping right. The Kilcrow form doesn't look as good as it did, and he's just pulled up, so it wasn't a horse I liked beforehand. Definitely no interest in that at all going forward. And that's about it for the 2 milers there. So Gerhard and Mighty Potter are the only 2 that really did anything for me for this division, and 3 Strike Life potentially. And what did you guys think about that particular race?
I thought they both ran a really good Supreme trial, actually. I would, if I was Gordon, I would let them both take the chance. They're different owners. 3 Stripe Life fits the same mould as Abacadabra's. 4th in the Champion Bumper. It's a path that Gordon's taken in the past. He played up in that Champion Bumper as well, all the way down to the start, and whipped around at the start as well. You know, you looked at him. I was on him for the Champion Bumper each way, and I watched him all the way down. I watched him at the start, and I thought, I've already lost my money before they've started. And the fact that he ran such a big race in the Champion Bumper, you know, that really needed marking up for me. I think he would have been quite close to the front 2, and you know how we've been talking about the front 2. We're talking about Sir Gerard now, the way Kilcrow had been spoken about. I think he would have been quite close to those 2 if he hadn't wasted so much energy before his race. I thought he ran a really nice Supreme trial. you pointed out he was unlucky in that race. You could run that race again and just put the two of them, and it would be difficult to choose between them, I think. There were a few noises before the race, a couple of weeks before, about Mighty Potter perhaps stepping up in trip. So that crossed my mind. And I'm kind of a little bit more nervous about Mighty Potter stepping up in trip than I am Three Stripe Life, actually, weirdly. I didn't think I'd feel that way. But I think the most likely outcome is they probably both go to that race. You're going to talk about some of the other races shortly, and I think there's another Gordon Elliott horse that might help that to happen, shall we say. Plus ownership that will slot in a given horse to the mid-distance.
Just on Mighty Potter, I'm pretty sure the owners were interviewed after the race and they said he'll be going Supreme.
Yeah, they did, and I presume it's Andrew and Gemma Brown, isn't it? And when I heard that, I presume because they've got a bet,
Yeah,
but they don't need.
I think they joked he's on a 66s or something, but But yeah, I mean, I'd agree with Three Stripe Life. I still think with him, the penny still needs to drop. That you mentioned about the bumper, I just think he's so immature still. I think when things finally click with him, I think you could see another kind of £5-10 improvement just like that. I think he really is learning on the job.
Yeah, I just really liked him. I didn't think, having backed Mighty Potter for the Supreme, I didn't think when I watched that back that I'd be so taken with another horse from it, because you sort of always inclined to like what you backed, especially when it won. Yeah. And I don't know. I think he's going to be a horse to follow for quite a while. I think he's going to win a big one at some point.
I think the point you make there about watching the race back is an important one, because there was a lot of reaction afterwards about perhaps going to the mid trip. I think those people that had that instant reaction are the ones that need to go and watch that race again and actually see how it unfolded. Just watch him, and I suspect most people would change their mind.
Yeah. So another horse that was in that race leads us on to the mares and novices. There's not really loads to go through that I picked out over Christmas so far. Grangy was in, and she was 8-1 before the race. She's now 10-1. She's fallen away after being there at the last to get done for fourth. She's not drifted out to a price where you think 10-1's good. I mean, that piece of form might end up looking quite good, and it might be. It's not a bad run, but it's also not anything to get you excited about. I'd struggle to see anyone that would watch that race and think, yes, that's the best form in the race, therefore 10-1 is a good value bet now. Now, it might be, but I just can't see it. And I don't know what price she was before she was into 8-1. I assume she didn't open up 8-1 this season, but she's got quite a bit of experience now. I can't see her getting significantly shorter for any reason now either, so not something that I'd back now. But she's not a horse I'd rule out, despite sort of. But if she drops back into mare's company over 2 miles, then who's to say she wouldn't have? Well, who's to say she wouldn't win that race? I just hope she wouldn't. The only other mare of real significance that moved at all in the market was Glens of Antrim, who won it like 4-11 over 2 mile 4. She was 6th in the Mares Novice Hurdle last year. It's her first. She's won a maiden now. 16-1's still available, and I wouldn't be interested at all in her for it. Just not a big enough price, and she just hasn't shown anything yet to make me think that I would back her. At that price.
I think she will be back though, because once you start getting close to the race, she has a very similar profile to Concertista. Not running so well last previous season, having that extra season, still a novice. The problem I have with her
Concertista was second though. Wasn't Concertista second on a debut in the Mares Novice Hurdle?
Yeah. What point of her being beaten and coming back and having the experience? Because she's looked like a good mare, but the problem I have with her is her jumping. I think she's got the engine, and if it clicked, she'd be a player, but you just know she's going to rattle 2 or 3 hurdles on the way around. That's the problem with her.
Yeah,
but I think she'll be backed. I think that 16s. I think a lot of words will sort of fall away over the next month or so, and I think she will be back.
Fair enough.
From Grandji, I'm starting to wonder whether she may end up in a different race, either making use of the allowance somewhere, because the point you made about her getting lots of experience, or maybe even, if she got the right mark, appearing in a handicap hurdle.
Yeah, she could do. Yeah, she could do. I mean, she's just all right, isn't she? I think by the time we get there, there's just the horses that if she drifted out, if she was a big price, then I'd go back and look at her. But while she's 10-1, like the market's just they haven't pushed her out anywhere near enough for anything. But she's definitely one to consider. I suppose the point I was making is she's I suppose if you look at just that race, she's disappointed because she's sort of not really stayed after the last and gone to fourth. Yeah. And that might not be as bad as it looks. However, 10-1 doesn't really reflect it. The only other horse I was borderline interested in was Nurse Susan at Leicester. Before that was called off for the Skeletons, I was going to use that in a roll up. I thought she would have won there, and she's only 16-1. I'll see where she's entered up next. It's Skeletons had a few decent mares now. It wouldn't put me off. I mean, as a blanket rule, I'm expecting Mullins to win the race, but obviously depending on the price and the horse. Nurse Susan was one I was interested in, and there's nothing else that really ran. However, there's two horses that are now declared for New Year's Day that I'll just mention, which I'm sure people have picked up on already. But there's Allegory Devassi on New Year's Day, which is 25s at the moment with 365. Is the race that Hook Up ran in last year, who was one of Willie's main darts for the race. Royal Kahala ended up winning, and she obviously won over this week too. I think 25-1 is just a massive price. I think she's related to Benny Didier, or not, or picked up the same way. I was talking to Scooby about it the other day, and he was banging on about her. I assume everyone that is subscribed to us is on already, because I think he put her up months ago, so hopefully we won't get in trouble for that. And the other one running is Horse Pissed. That's one of the best excuses for a horse not to run.
You're not really interested in the horse. You just wanted to say those two words, didn't you?
Horse Pissed, a great name. And she's running as well at Tremor for the same owners as Album Photo Donnelly, Mrs. Donnelly. It's over 2.5, I think. And again, she's just right connections, one to have a look at. Whether she's there just because Album Photo's going and Mrs. Donnelly's there for the day, because it's or whether she's going to be a genuine contender. But again, it's just one that is of interest for Willie. I think you can start ruling them out. If they've not run sort of by now, then they might not. What was that horse a couple of years ago that Scooby had put up, and it was all the rage for ages? Do you remember? Or Lamakissi, was it?
Lamakais?
Oh yeah. So they're probably just both. She made it absolutely scraped home over 2.5, and with the whole forum was on.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Lamakissi. I'm sure it was.
Maybe, yeah. Look as fat as anything on the day.
Yeah.
I wasn't around then, but that thing,
Yeah,
there was just so much hype around it, wasn't there?
Yeah.
The concern with both the two that you just mentioned there is the starting out at 2.5 miles thing. I need to go back and start looking at the previous where previous debuts have been. Because Willie's not usually one for starting out at the mid trip and then bringing them back in distance. Certainly not in the Supreme.
I think they'll be mares novice, won't they? Not
yeah, they will, but it's just it's the thought process, isn't it? Generally speaking, if he starts out a hurdler out at 2.5, he's not aiming at the Supreme, is he? So I'm just wondering, we've got two mares here that starting out over 2.5 miles. Wouldn't feel ideal. Certainly, I've looked at Allegory's Devassi's breed, and she's bred to be a proper stayer.
2-2 that race is. The one at Fairy House for Allegory Devassi. So
all right, that's okay.
The Horse Pissed is over 2.5, so he might struggle to finish.
Depends how many pubs are on the way around, doesn't it?
So yeah, that pretty much sums up where I was at with the mares novice hurdle. So then longer trips, obviously got to start with Journey with me and Kilcrut. I've read through the forum earlier today with people debating that and where they think Journey With Me will go and kill Crut. Journey With Me is now joint favourite for the Ballymore. Excuse me. The Bromhead said that he booked the trend over Christmas, which was a good sign, before ultimately playing it down, saying that he's only won a maiden hurdle, but that's quite the Bromhead-like. Won quite nicely. I personally wouldn't be decisive on where I think he'll end up. I think I'd be leaning towards Albert Bartlett, which was sort of the majority of people saying that's what they'd said before, and there's no real reason to doubt that. And I've got to say, I did feel a little bit underwhelmed by it, and I don't know whether that's because I wanted Kilcrut to win more. It's hard to say, right? It just the race with Kilcrut not bombing out but just finishing third. It just, I don't know, it took the shine off the race a little bit, and I don't think I saw. I wasn't watching it thinking that's the Ballymore winner. So I suppose I'd be leaning Albert Bartlett still, but that race at the moment there's loads of horses I like for the Albert Bartlett and just nothing I really like for the Ballymore. So I don't know whether you two were more impressed with Journey. I wasn't not impressed with Journey With Me at all. He was good. I just didn't think it was him going favourite for the Ballymore just made me think there's just a massive hole for something in the Ballymore to come and sort of take the race and by the scruff of the neck. For the same owners like Jerry Colombe.
I was impressed.
Say again.
I was impressed. I think you're completely right. I think the Ballymore is just waiting for a horse to kind of stamp their mark on the race. But yeah, I was impressed. I think he will be an Albert Bartlett type. I think he'll probably go for the Dublin Racing Festival, the 2 mile 6.
Yeah. I think that's what you said. They've got to step up in grade beforehand, which everyone does. There's no horse so far that's looked at this distance, I think, that's put down a proper marker. I mean, I'll get on to Stage Star in a little bit, but yeah, like Jerry Colombe, I thought he was really good at Down Royal, and he's still a massive price. He's been mentioned as a future chaser beforehand. I haven't found any quotes from after that race about him, so I assume I'm just expect. For some reason, he just doesn't seem to be one for this year. The way he's priced up, I don't know if I've missed anything about him.
No, I don't think you have. Look, firstly, Journey With Me, for me, they've talked about him being an Albert Bartlett horse. They've talked about him going same route as Manila Indo. That's exactly what they're doing, and that's exactly what they're still talking about. You know, they'll go that 2 mile 6 race at the Dublin Racing Festival. It's a plan that's worked previously. They see him as a similar type to Manila Indo when he won his Bartlett. Why would they do anything different? I don't understand why they even can consider doing anything different. They know what they've got. They've had that horse in that yard for a long time now. That horse works with other horses. They see him as a proper galloper.
They did say about looking at some other races.
If the ground's it's normal to the good to soft, or maybe even a bit quicker than that at the festival, they wouldn't want him at 2.5, would they? It wouldn't make any sense at all. I think the only way they'd be considering 2.5 is, if we had a softer, heavy ground festival.
I mean,
otherwise, why would you? And with Jerry
also
Colombe,
with
clearly, sorry, go on, Johnny.
So I was just going to say, also, I think the Albert Bartlett with some trainers, I think for me, Gordon Elliott has kind of swayed a little bit from. I think ever since Death Duty, I think he's swayed a little bit from sending his best horses there. Whereas I don't think Henry de Bromhead is that minded at all. He sends his good ones to the race. I think he has no hesitation as well. If the horse is an Albert Bartlett horse, he'll go that route. I don't think he'll prefer the Ballymore for any reason. I think he's a out and out galloper, like you say, and just. I think people have just got worried by the market shortening, because he's fallen into that kind of favourite spot now because there's nothing else there. But I think I'd assume Mullins probably has something that can do him for speed. Yeah,
I think it could well be that Henry's got something there that could do him for speed too. That if they've been talking that way, then there's obviously a reason for it. Jerry Colomb has been talked about as being the 2.5 mile Robco horse all along. They've got the third one as well for the shorter trip as well, whose name escapes me.
Grand Jury.
So they talked about him being the 2 mile horse. They talked about Jerry Colomb being the 2.5 mile horse, and Jenny with me being the 3 mile horse. Things change, they have to go and lay it down on the track, don't they? And decisions are made later. But that was certainly the thinking at the start of the season. Declan Phelan does all the sort of race planning there, and I think he's openly said all of those things. I think all the connections have said the same thing. So I didn't see anything to change my mind with either Jerry Colomb, who I actually think has gone a little bit under the radar, actually surprisingly. So I thought that was quite a nice performance personally.
I thought it was good as well. I liked it. Probably because
if you look at it this way, we've talked about Sir Gerard as 5-1 favourite for the Supreme, running probably an identical race. But Jerry Colomb's done that over 2.5 miles his trial for the Ballymore. People have got excited about one and they seem to have forgotten about the other, which I find actually really surprising. I actually think he is a really good price for the Ballymore.
Yeah, he's in. So, I mean, that's something I just don't understand why. I mean, he's as short as 14s, which in a place, but he's 25-1 with Paddy Power and Betfair. So for saying, but I mean, it's weirdly Sky are the ones that are 14, so they're trying to get money in the book. They're trying to get money in the book somehow.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I'm not. Wasn't blown away with him. And then from the same race, Kilcrut. I mean, it's hard to know what to do about him. It's not unfeasible, but if he's sound, because obviously, have they come out and said that there was an issue, or have people just spotted there was an issue?
They haven't said anything. He definitely lost his action. Some people say he didn't, but he absolutely categorically did lose his action coming around the bend.
So, I mean, if
something's going on with him.
If he's the one, if he's sound and they could just chuck him into a Grade 1 race, and he could come back as a maiden next year, and he might be favourite for the Supreme this time next year after running well in some races. So I don't know what to think of him. He was a weird one anyway, because he burst on the scene with that ludicrous win when he wasn't expecting to, and then everyone got excited by him, and then he ended up getting done by Sir G. And I guess he's not going to be most people's favourite horse after what he's done, because he was really well backed. Fortunately, I was out, so I missed most of it, because that's the exact kind of thing I'd get lured. And to be fair, I did back Journey With Me and Kilcrut for the Ballymore before they ran. So obviously one's short and one's length. And I still think he'll win races again. I just couldn't back him now.
No.
And if I could have cashed out.
I don't think they'll be trying to keep him a maiden, though. He's going to be 7 in come the festival. He'll be an 8-year-old the following season as a novice hurdler, which doesn't feel like he'd be chasing by then. It's hard to know what's wrong with him. I've heard suggestions that maybe this problem is wind. I don't think it is that. I think it's there's something physical going on. Quite what, I don't know. Something caused him to lose his action. So something is going on somewhere inside, whether it's mechanical. Sometimes they lose their action if there's some irregular happening with the heart. That happens. You've seen that happen in the past. What was it? It happened a couple of times last season. Captain Guinness was one, I think, last season. That happened. Completely lost his action. He had an atrial fibrillation. Easy for you to say. So I think there's something physical going on with Kilcrut. It manifested itself in some way, less noticeably in that in his first race ever hurdles, and it was something noticeable happened a couple of days ago. Something is going on.
Yeah.
If they can get to the bottom of that, but he'll still be a really good horse. But they've got to find out what the problem is.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll see. You just can't do anything until he runs again. So right, I better move on now, because I'm going to be longer than you at this rate.
In
the UK, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but there was only one horse that had only one race that had any interest in. The Challow Hurdle Stage Star was impressive. Nichols came out after and said that he's not afraid to go to Aintree, which is big and bold and brave of him to say. What a what a statement! he's comfortably beating a bunch of horses that would have no business in a Ballymore. So as a piece of form, it's no better than anything we've seen in Ireland either. I don't want to be downbeat on him at all because he was good. My go-to for a horse like that, anything with Nichols now, is he's had such good horses that haven't got it done or turned up that there'll just be something better by then. I think Eggs on the forum highlighted the to win today and any race at 25-1, which was a cracking bet for anyone that's on that. But he still might not turn up. So I just think something will beat him by the time we get there. I just can't see me thinking, yes, Stage Star is the one that I fancy. So I mean, he's 8-1, I think, third favourite behind Journey with Me and Sir Gerhard. So he's almost of the runners that you'd say would be most likely to go. He's the one, and you wouldn't get excited about him at 8-1. I wouldn't have thought. So he's not one he could do well. It's just the Ballymore is just absolutely there for the taking by something, because Stage Star isn't going to go off favourite no matter what. So I'm not interested.
You also had the Elliott runner in there as well, didn't you?
Yeah, a bit of a side.
But just have a little gauge on. I don't think he's going to sit anywhere near the top of the Irish pecking order.
No, and the fact that he didn't get, I can't remember the horse's name. It's one of 3 names, isn't it? Too hard to. You can find it for me. But
yeah, Gringo.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be disappointing if that horse would have won, because then you might as well just write off any British novice from even turning up, because if they can't beat that one, and he's been beaten far enough where I'm sure Elliott can't just go, well, that's it, I'll definitely pick up the race. But it might mean Stage Star's decent. I just expect something to be better by the time we get there. And the only other race before we get onto the
Juvenile Stage Star, Kev. Yeah. I was in at the Skelton Yard yesterday morning, and they quite like the horse that was second in that. What's it called? Balboa. What's it called? Can't remember what it's called.
West Balboa.
West Balboa. Mare getting £7. I think they expected to run a pretty decent race. She did run a pretty decent race, to be fair, because that was a competitive channel, I thought. So she did a good job finishing second there. But he ran away from them in that race. I thought Stage Star was really impressive yesterday.
Yeah, so was Brave Man's Game on the
horses. I get your point about Paul Nichols. Is he going to send him to the festival, etc.? I think it's a valid point. But I think all of us, myself included, we are all guilty right now of having Emerald Isle spectacles on. And writing off UK horses. I thought he was really impressive.
But then so was Brave Man's Game last year, and ultimately the same thing happens. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm on Stage Star. I'm actually on Sir Gerhard any race and Journey with Me, so I'm in a great spot in this race, and I don't think any of them are going to win it. I just don't fancy any of them. They're just. I understand the Emerald Isle classes like that, and I think that about. It used to be something like, if you fancy a Mullins horse, you're just a Mullins fanboy, or an Elliott horse, And the thing is, they just win so many races that has to be the starting point in most races, and that's I think, and the market doesn't get that wrong either. So even on the day, Stage Star would be a price, because they'll factor in Brave Man's Game, who has gone on to do well, and all these other horses that I think you just get a price on the day. So it just, I suppose, as we're talking anti-post, that 8-1 about Stage Star, despite me liking him, I just wouldn't back him now or really fancy him. So I totally agree with what you're saying, and I suppose I'm just aware of the bias that I've got.
Yeah. Well, I'll caveat it by saying I think at the same stage of the career, Brave Man's Game was probably a better horse. So, my overall feeling is that there are going to be better horses than Stage Star. But I thought that he ran a particularly smart race yesterday.
Yeah, it was good. But then I suppose the horses he's beating wouldn't, like, I know the Skellens might fancy that horse, but I mean, he fancies most of his horses, and if anything, it'd be running. It's not going to be anywhere near the Ballymore, is it? Or
no, look, the point there is not that they were expecting him to go and West Balboa to go and beat or stuff stage star, just the fact that they're expecting it to run a decent race. They like the horse. And it's one for the future as well. So,
okay, so speaking of being a fanboy about horses, though, the mighty Joseph O'Brien has got Eric Bloodaxe, and I've backed it today. He's still 16s, and I've got a nice hand in the Albert Bartlett, and I as you two know, put up Ginto for the Albert Bartlett, and Ginto beat him over 2.5, and then Eric Bloodaxe has come out and won with a lovely performance in a 2 mile 7 race, where he looks to have improved for going further. Part of me is just delighted with that, because I think Ginto would beat him just as easily over further. But I just thought, Joseph O'Brien sent some horses that I can't remember the name of the horse now, but it was really well handicapped, and he didn't send it to the handicap. He ended up having it at like a massive price running in the Albert Bartlett, and we were all quite
Sempo, I think.
Sempo, yeah. And I just think he's going to have a runner in the race, and I know that I'd kick myself if I hadn't having liked Ginto, and the fact that they've run sort of together, and then Eric Bloodaxe expecting to do better over further. I think that 16-1 is a Jigginstown stayer for the Albert Bartlett. I just thought that's a price that I'm willing to take. I probably should have had it in the book before then, but I backed that today because I watched the race back, and I just thought that's a really good staying performance, and I just liked him. I don't think he's a standout bet at 16s, but it's definitely it was good enough for me to add today, and I've already got quite a nice hand in the Albert Bartlett, so I don't think if he wasn't.
It's such a strong race for the Albert Bartlett as well.
Mm-hmm.
That trial, it's had countless winners come out of that, actually.
It's interesting.
I think you're right. I think
Albert Bartlett was just seen as a consolation race only a few years ago, wasn't it? Now it's starting to be the go-to trial for staying chasers next season.
I think you're right that I would take Ginto to beat Eric Bloodaxe again and over a longer trip as well. But
we know Ginto's going to win on New Year's Sunday on the 2nd and go favourite for the Ballymore, don't we?
As the declarations, we've got final decks for that. We haven't yet, have we?
No, not final decks. No, I'm
eagerly. Love to see both Hollow Games and Ginto in that.
Yeah, I mean
that should be tomorrow.
That's as we did when we did the Long Shots podcast. That's what I hoped would happen, and they'll sort themselves out from there, and we'll see where they end up. Because I mean, we don't want to go over all stuff, but he's mentioned Hollow Games this speed. I know I don't really fancy him for that, and I don't really. Someone asked me today because I really close to adding Ginto today for the Ballymore, and was asked, do I fancy him? And I'm like, well, no, but kind of. I just don't know. Something's got to go favourite in this race that's actually going to win, and I think that we might find out on Sunday which one of those two's quickest. And
my feeling is that Ginto and Hollow Games they're both good enough to place in either race, but I think Hollow Games is probably the only one that's good enough to win a race, and that's the Albert Bartlett. That's my feeling on them. I don't know which way round that Gordon's going to go with them. I think he's got a tricky little decision there, actually. But if I looked at both those horses and I said, which horse is going to win a race and which race is it going to be, it would be Hollow Games and Bartlett for me.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Excuse me, to see who's jocked up on them if they're both in. But we won't waste time on that, I suppose. Till we'll know tomorrow, won't we? And we can flirt on the forum about it then. So that just leaves the Juveniles. And I'll start. I've got these the other way around. I'm going to start with the British ones though, just because of the comments from trainers afterwards. So Isio, he's a really good winner in a race. We've seen some really good winners in the past. Radishan, the almighty Charlie Parks. It was impossible not to be impressed. But Nichols literally came afterwards and said the Triumph isn't the be all and end all. He's a future chaser. Plenty of races in the future. I think we'd consider the Triumph if it was heavy. So unfortunately, he's not one to think about for the Triumph now without non-runner bet, which is a shame for anyone that's on him. Like I'm personally not. Didn't even think about him. That's just disappointing if anyone is on him. I expect some people are. And then Porticello was the favourite in the race, got bumped and his chance was gone. They omitted some hurdles. Gary Moore said he's a future 2.5 to 3 mile chaser, not just a juvenile, one for the future. They'll speak to the owner about the Triumph, but it didn't sound like that was the plan either. So he's not on my mind at all either.
Which I found odd, Kev, because he's the kind of horse for me that wants, the Triumph Hurdle type test. It's a proper staying test for a juvenile, and that's what he is. he's a staying juvenile, really.
Yeah, I think he was more just talking about him as a future chaser
there.
rather than sort of a Goshen type that was ready for it now, perhaps. But even so, reading those, watching it back, he was decent. Well, he's good, but reading that, I'm just not interested in him. Like if Gary Moore's not committing to it now, he's not the kind of guy to hide his feelings on where he's going to go for any real reason. So just not really interested in either of them. There was you'd take another look at Night Salute, who beat him last time. I think he's on target for the Adonis. He's 16-1, so I suppose you could have a look at that. It's not something I've done myself. So not really interested in those two because I don't think either will run, or I wouldn't back them without non-runner no bet. And then just two other races. Ikare Allen, I really liked how he went about things for his first run over hurdles. It was good. His first run in this country over hurdles. It was his first run over hurdles, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think he jumped quite well for that. He's beaten nothing of note at all, so needs to step up in grade next time. But there isn't a horse that you can't say that about in the juvenile division. So, like Phil Dorr would have easily won that race, but I don't think Phil Dorr has beaten anything so far that is any good either. Now, the way onto Phil Dorr, so he won the Knight Frank, which is a brilliant trial. He absolutely deserves to be 3-1. He deserves to be favourite for the Triumph Hurdle at this stage. I try to be critical with him. I didn't like the way he went over the last two hurdles. He was really slow and deliberate. In a proper race, if he was against something, he would have been slowing down and might get caught out. But essentially, he's just had so much in hand there. He's absolutely thrashed them, and he didn't need to ping a fence at all. But I would like to have seen a horse be able to do that. Then again, though, I didn't like Defi DeSoy the year he won the Triumph, and he couldn't hurdle for shit. He was just clattering into them and still was good enough to win, so it wouldn't particularly put me off. His RPRs are up there with what Zanahiyr was doing at this stage last year. Again, I was trying to look for reasons not to like him because I'm not on him, and there just aren't any. He's just absolutely rock solid, isn't he, at the moment? It doesn't mean I think he can't be beaten, but there's just no way if you were on him you'd be unhappy with it. I don't feel like the vibes are strong from Elliot. He just says he's a nice horse and things, rather than sometimes he gets a bit hyperbole on the go. But then he did that last year with Zanahiyr and played down Quilixios, and Quilixios went on to win. So even Elliot not being sort of over the top on him, I can't even find a reason to not like Phil Dorr, really. So yeah, he's just can't read too much into that. I think he was impressive. I don't think he's actually beaten anything that any horse that wants to be winning the Triumph wouldn't be beating. But until they meet at the Dublin Racing Festival, which I think he'll either go straight there or to the Dublin Racing Festival, and I suppose that will depend on what else he's got and what else Willie has by that point, and we'll see. But yeah, if you're on Phil Dorr, you're happy as Larry, aren't you? He's not one I'm going to rush to back, but can I see him winning? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones that got on early at the big prices. So at that price, I'd really love to see him win. But I don't think he's going to have it. I just have the feeling there's going to be something better than him. And when you look at the market, trying to figure out what that is, it could be an Ikare Allen. Could be Vauban, who makes his debut, I think, tomorrow or the day after.
Yeah, he's been well backed, hasn't he, today?
There's been
really
quite a bit
well
backed for him, yeah.
I did hear I think he was tipped by that guy, Mark Howard. I think he tipped him up on over Christmas. I heard today. So that might be why there's a lot of support for him.
Yeah, that'll definitely be part of it. I think the vibes are they like him, so I think everybody thought he was going to run in the Ikare Allen race. It would be the other way around. Don't know whether there's anything to read into that, really. So he could be. I think you mentioned Night Salute, which I think he's interesting. I think he's a bit under the radar, really. I think because I think he's one of those horses that does enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's not going to be anything flashy about him. I think he's interesting. He's definitely a contender. But on that, the Fildor form, just going back to that French form in this world is really interesting, isn't it? Because I've watched that race 2 or 3 times now in France, and Fildor was put in his place quite comfortably by In This World, and In This World's won his debut race over here. I don't know what the intention is. I didn't ask that question yesterday. I probably should have done. Whether the intention is the Festive, but he's second favourite, so you'd like to think it probably is. And I think it's possible there might be an English winner of that race. You haven't watched the Fildor In This World race, then, obviously.
No, I saw. I did have a look. I couldn't be bothered finding the footage today, though, as it didn't run over Christmas. But I just saw he was 8-1 and thought, I'm not backing that. So I'll sort that out another time now. What I might do is end this one here, and then we'll start another one because we're on 1 hour 10, and then if it goes much longer, it takes ages to upload. So.
Yep, sure.
Should we end this one here? Part 1 done.
We'll say goodbye for a moment, guys. Catch you shortly.
Bye.